Hello students, this is single science classes. This is e-learning initiative of Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan and I am Meenal Singer of DGT Science of KV Loktak, Manipur. Today onwards we study about the remaining chapter of class 7. We have already started our first chapter, that is nutrition in plant of class 7th, and today I'm going to start the third part of this chapter, that is nutrition in plants. We have already studied about nutrition, autotrophs and heterotrophs, photosynthesis and its process. In the previous chapter or in the previous session we have already studied about stomata, about cells, about chlorophyll and how photosynthesis occurs in plant and what is the process of photosynthesis. We have already discussed about the autotropic mode of nutrition, that is the how plants synthesize the food and how that food come to us and how oxygen is evolved from the process of photosynthesis. Today we are going to study heterotrophic mode of nutrition, that how some plants that which do not possess chlorophyll use to get their nutrition. So students, in heterotrophic mode of nutrition, today we are going to study about that plant which do not possess any type of chlorophyll. There are some plants in nature which do not have any chlorophyll. Since you have already studied that all the plants are autotrophs, but there are some plants that are heterotroph because they do not synthesize their own food, because they have lack of chlorophyll molecule. They do not have a chloroplast, so they do not capture the energy of sun and make it use of to make its own food. Like there are some plants like Cuscuta is also known as amarbel, that is why they do not have chlorophyll, that is why they cannot make their own food. Like humans and other animals, such plant also depend on other plant. Humans also depend on green plants, and these plants are also depend on the green plants, because green plant synthesize their own food by the process of photosynthesis. So the plants which depends on other plants for their foods are known as heterotrophs, and this mode means method. This method of getting nutrition from other green plant is known as heterotrophic mode of nutrition. What they are called heterotrophs. Heterotrophs are those plants and animals which obtain their food by the help of other plant, that is green plant, because they do not possess their own chlorophyll, so they depend on the chlorophyll of other plant. Like Cuscuta is a very common example of that. So heterotrophic plants are of many kinds. Number one is parasitic plant. Parasitic plants are those plants which depend on other plant in the for their food and for their nutrition and for their shelter as well. There are some plants which gets their nutrition from other plants. These plants from which they get their nutrition are called the host plant, and the dependent plants are called as parasitic plants. That means the plant which obtain their food from other plant is known as parasitic plants, and that other plant is known as host plant. For example, as I told you earlier, that Cuscuta is a very common example. This plant you have already seen, there is a branch of a tree on which other branch of tree is surrounded. That means that other branch, this yellow color branch, is climb upon this tree. That is why this plant is known as what? Parasitic plant, and that this plant is known as host plant. This is Cuscuta. This is a common example of Cuscuta. This is commonly known as amarbel in Hindi. It does not have its own chlorophyll, that is why it is yellow in color, because they do not possess any type of chlorophyll molecule. So to obtain its food, it climbs on the other tree to get its food. The plant on which it climbs is known as host plant. That is for amarbel, this is host plant. This plant is known as host plant, and this branch of yellow color is known as parasitic plant. So Cuscuta is itself a parasitic plant, whereas this plant from which it obtained its nutrition is known as a host plant. Every plant which are of this type, that is which is parasitic in nature, depends on their host plant for their food and for their shelter. Like plants, some animals are also parasitic in nature, that is they live on other animals or other plants to obtain its nutrition as well as its food also, as well as its shelter also. Like, this is the important point which you have to note, that there are some animals also which obtain their food from other plants. Those animals are known as parasitic animals. Like parasitic plants, these animals also depends on other animals for their food and for their shelter also. That means they live on that other animal and they obtain their nutrition from that other animal. Like mosquito, leeches, bed bugs, lice are the blood sucking parasite. These sucks the blood. Mosquito also sucks the blood, leech also sucks the blood, bed bugs also suck the blood. Lice, which is found in the head of human being, also sucks the blood. You can see the picture. Mosquito, this is commonly household mosquito which sucks the blood. It obtains its nutrition from the human as well as from the dog. And this leech, it can, with the help of its mouth, it insert in the body of the man and sucks the blood. And this is bed bug, which is commonly found in the bed. It also sucks the human blood. These are the important parasitic animals. We have studied now about parasitic plants, that means the plant which lives on other host plants, which depend their life on other host plants, and the animals which depend their life for food and shelter for other plants are known as parasitic animals. Like parasitic animals, the important category of plant is insectivorous plant. That means the plant which eat insect. Yes, insectivorous, made up of two words. Insectivorous means that consume. Plant that consumes insects are known as insectivorous plants. Some plant that can eat insect are known as insectivorous plant. They have a special chemical in it. These chemicals are known as enzymes. These enzymes help us that plant to digest that particular insect. Most popular example of this insect eating plant is pitcher plant. It is a shape of pitcher. You can see here it is a pitcher plant. It has a lid in it. इसके ऊपर क्या है, एक lid बनी है, and this is a shape of a pitcher in which you can hold water or some type of food plant. So this is pitcher plant in which there is a lid, and in the inner side of this pitcher it has small glands which secretes the enzymes. These enzymes are also known as digestive enzymes, which helps the plant to digest something. That is why this plant can easily digest any insect. In this pitcher, in this abdominal part, it has a small hair-like structure in which the insect trap easily, and this lid, after the insect inserted, this lid closes down, and with the help of these enzymes the insect digests itself. Most popular example, this is commonly, it is a wild plant, so you can't easily see that pitcher plant, but what you can see is Venus flytrap and sundew in common. This is common example. Though these plants are green in color, but they lack in nitrogen, means they can pitcher plant and insectivorous plant can synthesize their own food, but they do not have the ability to absorb nitrogen from the atmosphere. That is why they eat insect, and that insect fulfills the need of nitrogen of that plant. So that is why they consume insect, and because they consume flesh of that insect, that is why they are known as carnivorous plant. Since these plants can synthesize their own food but only eat insect to fulfill their need of nitrogen, therefore they are partial heterotroph. Partial heterotroph means, partials means hota hai half. These are half heterotrophs, means they can synthesize their own food, but due to inability to convert their nitrogen of atmosphere, they can consume the nitrogen from the help of insect body. That is why they are partial heterotrophs. Some other examples are sundew, Venus flytrap and bladderwort. You have seen these three examples anywhere. These are common in nature. For this is Venus flytrap. In this Venus flytrap, when insect come in the mouth, they have a needle-like structure. This structure closes up, and it also possesses digestive gland which secrete enzyme. Due to that enzymes, these insect digested in the Venus flytrap. That is why it is known as fly trap. Fly means insect and trap means they trap the insect. They capture the insect inside its mouth, and this insect digested with the help of the digestive gland which is present in that plant. Also see some of the picture here. This bladderwort. Bladderwort is also an insectivorous plant. It can commonly eat all the flies, all the mosquitoes, whichever comes in near its mouth. And this is sundew plant. Sundew plant means it has a small dew-like structure on their head. It rolls down above the insect and digest that in very rapid. Now this is common household example. You have seen this bucket. This bucket is full of this bucket is full of mushrooms, and you have also seen this rotten bread. There is a green color structure on that rotten bread. These two examples are very common in nature. That means these are mushrooms which you eat very rapidly, and these are the bread. These are the stale bread, because small green color patches appear on this. Do you know these are also two different type of plant? These two plants are heterotrophic in nature. That means they can't synthesize their own food, and they depend on the other plants to obtain its nourishment. So these plants which we have seen, like mushroom and that bread, have green patches, are known as saprotrophs. Saprotrophs means they do not have the ability to make its own food, but they can consume their food from dead and decaying matter and animals. Some plants obtain their nutrition from dead and decaying animals and plants. These plants are called saprophytes, and that mode of nutrition is known as saprotropic mode of nutrition. That means saprotrophs are those plants that consumes their food from dead and decaying animals. जो मर जाता है उससे obtain करते हैं. Like insectivorous plant, they also possess some type of special digestive enzyme. That enzyme they secrete on the dead body, and due to that enzyme the dead body converts into a juice like solution. From that solution they absorb their nutrients. That means they secrete on their enzymes on the dead body, and the above structure of that dead body on which the enzyme is there, it converts into a juice like solution, and from that solution they absorb their nutrients. Example of saprotrophs are this clouded agaric. This is a type of a mushroom which you commonly eat. Some mushrooms are poisonous in nature as well because they possess toxic enzymes, so we can't consume that type of mushroom also. This is fungus. This structure is commonly seen by all of us in the plants, especially in the season of rain. That this fungus is different from that fungus which is on the bread which we have seen earlier. That means that are green in color. There are so many varieties of fungus. This fungus develop on the plant, but there are some fungus which are very harmful in nature, like that of mushroom also. Sometimes fungus can make us fall sick. If we eat rotten bread which have green patches on it, if we eat that bread, that fungus can secrete toxic enzymes in our stomach and make us fall sick. We generally get dysentery and diarrhea from that fungus. This is mushroom which we commonly eat. So there are fungus which can destroy the whole agriculture, that is whole field. Sometimes the fungus can occur also in wheat field, in rice field, which can destroy all the funguses. So all saprophytes plants are not so useful or not so beneficial for animals, but some are very beneficial for plants and for especially for us. We can consume that, but most of them are harmful for us because they produce certain type of diseases which we have to prevent ourselves from this. Now the next example which we are going to see are the symbiotic plants, the plants which help each other. When two different type of plants help each other for obtaining their nutrition and for getting their shelter, this is known as symbiotic plant, and that relationship is known as symbiotic relationship. Sometimes two plants of different species live together, help each other in obtaining food and shelter. This association is called symbiosis, and such plant is known as symbiotic plants. That means they are two friends of different families. Like we are in classroom, we have different type of friends that help us to live, that help us to share our food. We can share our food, we can do our homework together. So we are in a symbiosis relationship and we are known as symbionts. Some two plants of different species live together and help each other in obtaining food as well as obtaining shelter. This association is known as symbiosis, and such plants are known as symbiotic plants. Symbiotic relationship की definition जानते हैं? The relationship in which two different organisms, or we can say that two different plants, in case of plant, live together, share their shelter. That means they live in the same space, and food is called symbiotic relationship. For example, lichen you have seen some, it is a stone like structure on which green color small plants appear on that. In that lichen is neither an example not of animal, not a plant, but actually it is an association. That means lichen is an association in which algae is a type of a plant, and fungus, which we have studied earlier, lives together. Fungus provide shelter, whereas water and mineral to the algae, and algae in return provide food which it prepares by photosynthesis. That means fungus do not have the capability, because some fungus is a saprophyte, they do not have the capability to synthesize their own food. That is why they depend on algae for their food. But fungus, in case of that, provide algae a specific shelter to live in. That is why lichen is an association between algae and fungus. There are some plants also, that is leguminous plant. Leguminous plants are those plants, for example peas, beans, etc. Leguminous plants, these have a nodules in their roots. Nodules means a small ball like structure होते हैं, swollen structure होते हैं उनके roots में. These nodules have rhizobium bacteria in it. This rhizobium bacteria provide nitrogen to the plant, because these plants do not have the ability to take atmospheric nitrogen, and plants provide shelter to that bacteria. That means let us see the picture of this while I am explaining you. This is a root of leguminous plant, and this is primary root, this is secondary root, and these are small button like structure on that root, that is known as nodules. In these nodules, small bacteria live inside that nodules, especially in leguminous plant. That means pea plants and bean plants has these small swollen structure which is known as root nodules. These root nodules, in this bacteria lives, and the bacteria which commonly lives in that root nodule is known as rhizobium bacteria. Since leguminous plants also have the do not have the capability to convert atmospheric nitrogen into the nitrates, so to fulfill their need of nitrogen, they depend on the rhizobium bacteria, and rhizobium bacteria convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrate and provide it for the plant. But plant help us the rhizobium bacterium for their shelter, means plants give the space, give their root nodules in which rhizobium live. That means plant provide shelter to the rhizobium bacterium, and rhizobium bacterium gives plant the nitrogen, which plants do not have the ability to convert nitrogen, to absorb nitrogen of the atmosphere. This is the last slide. This is where the chapter ends. We have two headings remaining, that is how to absorb their nutrition and the important terminology. In the next session we studied about the important terms which comes in this chapter. So thank you and stay tuned.